Redistricting.
Redistricting.
Yes. What is your opinion? What do you think of the governor's plan?
I think this effort right now underway to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't put his thumb on the scale on the votes in Congress, which would jeopardize trillions, certainly billions of dollars of taxpayer money that we send to the U.S. Treasury, because no one sends more money, taxpayer money, to Washington, D.C. than do Californians. Yet we're not getting it back. The $1 trillion cut to Medicaid, what we call Medi-Cal here, the cuts to research grants that we were getting in our universities, all those are dollars that Donald Trump cut, but they're also dollars that we sent to the federal treasury, and now we're not getting our fair share.
How does redistricting get that money back for us?
It makes sure that Donald Trump can't put his thumb on the scale, rig the voting process in Congress by making sure that the people who are voting in Congress are people who won their seats the right way.
What's your opinion of the governor's plan?
I think it's horrible. I think it's let me tell you how broken something is by telling you I'm going to break it more. Murder is not acceptable, so I'm going to go murder you. Death penalty. He says the death penalty is not acceptable, so he just did away with it. It doesn't fly. It flies in the face of his decision to do this. He's saying this is wrong, so I'm going to do it too. He's saying the death penalty is wrong, so he's not going to do it. He isn't going to do it just because we told him we want him to. That's what the voters wanted. He's going to do what he wants to do. So this is a perfect example. I'm going to tell you all that someone else is breaking the law, so that means I can break the law. I'm going to tell you all that someone's doing something unethical, so I'm going to do something unethical.
This has become a little bit of a divisive issue in my own house. My wife she doesn't like it. She doesn't support it. She thinks that districts should be drawn by independent redistricting commissions and that it is wrong for the state to be putting its finger on the scale.
And you?
And for me, I've been in government. And I've seen the impacts of especially what this administration and Republican-controlled Congress could do to a state like California if Donald Trump just decides to dry up some dollars coming to the state. And we're a donor state, we get far more than we get back. You know, if I'm forced to make a choice and have my ballot sitting in front of me, I'm voting yes. Because at the end of the day, if we're going to have hope of any type of leverage, you know, throughout the next couple of years during Donald Trump's presidency, it would be really helpful if Democrats controlled Congress so that we could fight back and secure the money that is coming to California. But again, this really illustrates a lot of the frustration that I have with not just my party, but politics in general, is that this is all in response to something that Donald Trump said. And we had the upper hand on this issue. Okay, Donald Trump, you go to Texas and you tell them to go ahead and redraw the map and create 5 new seats over there and take them away from Democrats. That is a great opportunity to rally the troops and introduce legislation in Congress, even if you're a minority party, saying, you know what, I think that this is wrong. We shouldn't gerrymander districts. We should be more like California and have an independent redistricting commission do that and author the legislation and put them on the spot and make them say that we should continue to gerrymander across this country. I think that would have been more strategic. I think that would have been more significant. But here we are, we're left with this decision. And in my own family, day comes up, we vote, my wife's gonna vote no, and I'm gonna vote yes.
Redistricting. What is your opinion on the governor's plan?
Well, we have to preserve democracy. It's not transparent. It certainly isn't representative of government.
No, what is it? His plan
or the current situation we're in.
Okay.
If I was governor today, I would have to respond and protect the great state of California from this boomerang effect.
From Texas.
From Texas. And I like the fact that the governor invited all the Democrats into California, but it gives me the heebie-jeebies because I saw the movie Civil War. Did you? I saw it. It was written by a Brit. But in the most dystopian way, California and Texas get together in the Western forces to fight the D.C. operatives, the swamp. And it doesn't end well for somebody. I don't want to give you the spoiler.
How do you feel about the governor's redistricting plan?
Well, it's totally corrupt, and it's unconstitutional, and it's illegal, beyond even the constitutional changes that he's trying to make through the ballot initiative that he's trying to get on the ballot. In fact, I'll be filing a lawsuit challenging its constitutionality in federal court, which hasn't been done yet by the various opponents of this. But let's just take a step back, which is we all agree, I think, that politicians shouldn't draw their own maps. I mean, that's obviously wrong and corrupt. Common sense tells you that.
But isn't that what Texas is doing?
So Texas is following its constitution, however. So Texas didn't change its constitution to take the power to draw the maps out of the hands of the politicians, put it in the hands of the people, which we did here. No one wanted this. There's no one in California saying to the politicians, please, give us new maps.
Well, there might be now because they're out there, you know.
I know, but it's lower gas prices, give us lower housing costs, give us more jobs. That's what people want. So I would much rather this whole thing wasn't happening. And the cost of it, $250 million of taxpayer money for something that nobody really wants apart from the politicians.
Redistricting. What do you think of the governor's plan?
I support the governor's plan.
What is your opinion of the governor's plan?
I support it. I've endorsed it publicly. I think that we're looking at real gerrymandering coming out of states like Texas. And California has an opportunity to push back and to say that we not only will give voters something better and the chance to gain 5 new Democratic seats, we're doing it in a way that is transparent. We're doing it in a way that lets the voters decide.
Let the people decide, and I'm for it. You know, with the targeting of California fire victims, the raids in California, the ICE raids, going after UCLA and taxpayer dollars and holding us up for more than $1 billion, I think people have a right to challenge what's going on, you know, this rigged election that they're trying to do nationally, and he gave people a voice. Now, initially, they were talking about doing this in the legislature, and initially they didn't make it clear that it was going to be temporary. I was against that because I voted for the Redistricting Commission. I supported it back when.
Redistricting. Yep. What is your opinion of the governor's plan?
I'm against anything that disenfranchises Californians. Fred Hampton, who was a great Black Panther intellectual, was killed by police in Chicago. He said, "We don't believe that you fight fire with fire best. We believe that you fight fire with water best." We're not going to fight racism with racism. We're going to fight racism with solidarity. We're not going to fight disenfranchisement with disenfranchisement. We're going to fight it with representative democracy. The Democrats, they don't want the people's voice to be heard. They want to consolidate power. And under the guise of fighting back against the Republicans and fighting back against Trump, you are handing them more power. Well, what have they done to earn it? In the state of California, are y'all feeling that this has been a state that has been well run and for your best interest, that it's working for working people? So you're going to essentially hand them the keys to make sure that they own every district in the state? You imagine thinking that you can fight fascism with fascism.
The governor's plan is essential. It is essential from the perspective that no president, no one should be manipulating elections in this way as the president has asked the state of Texas to do. We have a process for this. Mm-hmm. It's after every decennial census. We have a redistricting of our congressional seats, our legislative seats. And just the idea that there's manipulation that is being directed from the top that's going to affect California's representation, proportionate representation, we have to fight back.
Redistricting. What's your opinion of the governor's plan?
Newsom's plan. Trash.
Can you elaborate?
Okay, so what? We're going to keep increasing taxes, and we're going to go on this big tirade on this war against Donald Trump, spending state money, fighting the federal government. What are we doing? $250 million to spend on Prop 50? By the way, it violates our Constitution. It's the way that it's set up is that we, the people, are supposed to figure out how the districts are supposed to be drawn. So he's violating the Constitution. He's spending a ton of money doing it. It's trash. It's a waste.
So clearly you were a supporter of the governor's plan, dubbed empowering voters to stop Trump's power grab. 40% of Californians voted for President Trump. What do you say to those 6 million voters who you will also represent as governor?
No one should do power grabs. No one is a king. No one has a right to deny you your vote. No one has a right to deny you your taxpayer dollars coming back to you to provide the services for your mom's health care, for your kids' education. No one has a right to game the system. No one has a right to sort of game the Constitution and hope the courts allow you to do this simply so you can have a little bit larger majority in the Congress. This is a time for us to stand up for democracy. This is a time for us to stand up for the rule of law and say, no mas.
6 million voters who voted for Trump is a lot of votes. Are you going to need those votes in order to win if you're a top two?
I need every vote. I'm not interested in excluding any vote.
Are you worried that those folks would maybe not vote for you because you are so supportive of this?
No, because I'm going to let them know straight out. I will talk to them. We talked a little while ago off camera how it's so important to be honest, because if you try to game someone, they ultimately will find out. I am who I am, and you always tell young folks who decide they want to go into politics or policy, I say, if you want to know where a leader's going to take you, look at where the leader came from.
What do you say to those 40% who you may need in a top two California primary?
I think them specifically, I think they're tired of politicians just talking at them, and I feel like they just want to be heard and they want to listen. There are a lot of Republicans that are in the state of California that they don't necessarily love everything that President Trump is doing, but at least the perception is that he's doing something or he's saying how I feel. And so I think it's really important that this campaign is going to be very focused on talking to everybody. My positions and opinions are going to be what they're going to be, but I can say them authentically, I can say them honestly, and I really hope that they'll take the time to listen, but also take the time to talk to me. Tell me how you feel. Tell me what's concerning you and how you would solve for these problems, or what's something that we're not thinking of. Because you come to Sacramento and it is just this echo chamber, and people trying to convince you that this is the most important thing, that's the most important thing, this is what voters care about, that's what voters care about. But nobody really listens to people that are on the ground, and they're screaming. They're saying, hey, this is what we want, this is what we need, this is what we want out of our government. And I feel like I just need to listen and be very honest about who I am and how I would approach these problems.
I sit with Governor Newsom on this. And I believe the customers of California right now in the poll do the same.
Not all customers of California are Democrats, and you represent those folks as well. Do you think they are supportive of redistricting? And what do you say to them when they're watching this and they may say, hey, this guy seems moderate, he's a businessman, I might want to vote for him?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. And the question is this: Donald Trump's actions have been such that he wants to just attack California. He has not shown us any gratitude for all the billions of dollars of tax dollars the federal government gets from California. Show us some gratitude, Mr. President, and we'll come and work with you.
Again, I ask you though, when it comes to redistricting, are you alienating those Republicans by saying, yes, I support what Gavin Newsom is doing?
Look, I would look at the polls of the state. Right now, the polls say protect California. Whatever the California customers want, I will be their leader and represent them.
Fair enough. What do you say to the 40% of California voters who you'll need in order to win, who voted for Trump?
How would I need them in order to win, man?
Well, unless you think you're going to get 60% of the vote. You think you'll get 60%. Everybody who did not vote for Trump will vote for you. That's what you're thinking.
In a general election, yes. If it is me versus a Republican, I think that I will win the people who did not vote for Trump.
What if it's you versus another Democrat?
I don't intend that to be the case.
So how do you not intend that to be the case? Are you going to ask them not to run?
No, I'm saying I'm going to build the support. I have the support already in terms of name recognition. And so I'm going to do the very best I can to make sure that we get through this primary in a really strong position. But let me be clear with you. I represented Orange County. I represented a purple area. I have stood on my own 2 feet and won Republican votes before. That's not something every candidate in this race can say. If you're from a deep blue area, if you're from LA or you're from Oakland, you don't have an experience.
But you just said you don't need those Trump voters.
Well, you asked me if I needed them to win.
So you don't
I
think
feel
you
like
need
this
to
is
vote?
unnecessarily argumentative. What is your question?
The question is the same thing I asked everybody, that this is being called the empowering voters to stop Trump's power grab. Every other candidate has answered this question. This is not
Correct. And I
argumentative.
said I support it.
So, and the question is, what do you say to the 40% of voters who voted for Trump?
Oh, I'm happy to say that. It's the do you need them to win part that I don't understand. I'm happy to answer the question as you have it written, and I'll answer it.
And we've also asked the other candidates, do you think you need any of those 40% of California voters to win? And you're saying, no, you don't.
No, I'm saying I'm going to try to win every vote I can. And what I'm saying to you is that...
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered
I don't
our
care.
follow-ups.
I don't care. I want to have a pleasant, positive conversation in which you ask me about every issue on this list. And if every question you're going to make up a follow-up question, then we're never going to get there.
Ms.
And we're
Porter,
just going to circle around.
I am an investigative
I have never had to do
reporter.
this before, ever.
You've never had to have a
end an
conversation
interview.
with
To end
a
an
reporter?
interview.
Okay, but every other candidate has done this.
What part of I'm me? I'm running for governor because I'm a leader. So I am going to make...
So you're not going to answer questions from reporters? Okay, why don't we go through? I will continue to ask follow-up questions because that's my job as a journalist, but I will go through and ask these, and if you don't want to answer, you don't want to answer. So nearly every legislative...
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you, and I don't want this all on camera.
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you either. I would love to continue to ask these questions so that we can show our viewers what every candidate feels about every one of these issues that they care about. And redistricting is a massive issue. We're going to do an entire story just on the responses to that question. And I've asked everybody the same follow-up questions. So what do you say to those voters to get their vote back when you're supporting something that they may not agree with?
You know, voters change. And while those folks voted for Trump, for example, largely on the issue of immigration, for example, most Americans do not support Trump's attacks on the immigrant communities. Something like 70% of Americans are saying they do not support that, and they want to see a path to citizenship. And so just because 40% of Californians or Americans voted for Trump, that doesn't mean that they support every policy that they have. I'm certain that they don't agree with the policies that he's using to attack education, closing the Department of Education, taking away $1 billion from our state. I'm certain that this is not what they voted for. Many of them think that they voted for getting some relief around gas prices and grocery prices, but what have they seen? They haven't seen that yet. But this is a power grab, and we have an opportunity to block it and to protect California's interests and to do it in a way that is transparent.
You mentioned it earlier, 40% of Californians voted for President Trump. Are you concerned that by supporting this, that you are alienating those folks who you will need in the if you come down to the final two, you're going to need those votes?
Look, I always ask, I know there are Democrats that I might alienate in the course of this race, and there'll be Republicans I alienate. There'll also be Democrats and some Republicans that want a leader who's a uniter, who wants to work with both sides, who wants to focus on common sense. So, you know, you win a few, you lose a few.
This sort of movement has been dubbed empowering voters to stop Trump's power grab. 40% of Californians voted for Trump.
Yes.
What do you say to those voters who say, I'm not aligned with this narrative?
You know, call it what you want, but at the end of the day, it's about who's going to represent your interests in Washington. And so I like to have the conversation more about how it's going to affect people's lives. And obviously the press and how the campaign's going to unfold will be at this level in terms of, you know, the president intervening, Texas changing the lines, California responding. But really at the end of the day, it's about who's going to represent California's interests throughout all of California back in Congress.
And for Californians who live in red districts now,
Yes.
and who want that representation, what do you say to them when they say, yes, but this is going to take that away from me?
They still have representation. They still have a voice at the ballot box when they vote for whomever they believe is going to represent their...
But you called it manipulation. I mean, it literally is being redrawn to be a blue district as opposed to a red.
Yes, it is, but it still includes them. And I would hope that they would look at the candidates who are running.
But I'm sorry, but by definition,
Yes.
the whole point is to outweigh their vote, right?
Well, it's to keep par with what the impact would have been in terms of gaining 5 Republican seats.
Right, but for them specifically. So let's say I am. What's one of the districts you were talking about? Where these rural districts?
Yeah, up in North State, Shasta, Siskiyou County.
Okay, so let's say I live in Shasta, and I am a lifelong Republican, and I absolutely want a Republican representative in Congress. And for years, I've had one. Now someone is saying, you still get to vote the same way you vote, and all your neighbors will still vote the same way you vote, but that vote is now being diluted because we're going to put in all these other votes. So you no longer get that Republican representative because we, the Democratic majority, are going to decide to dilute you, right? So what do you say to those folks who say this is manipulation? You are taking me and my neighbors' votes, and you are essentially making them a moot point because now you're going to put all these other votes that will essentially counteract ours.
That is a valid point in terms of their voice being diluted somewhat. But what I will say to them also is, look, these are areas of the state that actually want to become vital economies. These are areas of the state that actually have probably disproportionate rates of people on Medicaid. These are parts of the state where people are relying on, food assistance more than probably other parts. And I would just say, who's going to best represent those interests when those cuts are upon you? And
you think that Democrats will better represent those interests, and so you think this is better for them even if they don't want a Democratic
I actually do, and I will say up north, there's been a member of Congress who was at the forefront of cutting SNAP, at the forefront of voting for health care cuts. So how does that actually represent his district?
So some of the other candidates who've sat here who support redistricting, they will argue, and California pays the most money into the federal government, right? We pay the most taxes because we're the largest state, right? The fourth largest economy in the world. But we're not getting our fair share back. Listen, we're giving people a choice, and they can go to the ballot and they can vote against this. And if they don't, they are then giving all of the power to President Trump. What's your response to that?
The second part, I'll deal with the second part first. It doesn't serve the voters of California in any way. It serves the DNC. It does not help us. It helps them. And that means that they are using Californians essentially as a prop in their battle between Democrats and Republicans.
Today's maps, never mind what Gavin Newsom wants to do, today we have a massively distorted political map in California. We have a very stable Republican vote in statewide elections over the last 20 years, and around 40% of the vote across the state. That's really steady. Republicans don't have 40% of the representation in Congress. Anything like, it's actually less than half that. It's 17%. And with this new plan that they've got, it would be down to 6%. Now, I understand that the districts aren't supposed to be a perfect match in terms of proportional representation, but it's not supposed to be wildly out of step with that. Right now, if you look at just the total number of votes cast, it basically takes around 600,000 or so votes to elect a Republican to Congress. It takes around 200,000 votes to elect a Democrat to Congress. A Democrat vote in California today is worth 3 times what a Republican vote is. With these new maps, it's going to be 8 times. 8 times. So we are completely violating the principle of equal protection.
The whole idea of gerrymandering so we can rig votes and everything else, we will make sure that doesn't happen. And I'm going to tell you that I kind of believe that we do have a good system, although I don't 100% agree with it because they were still appointed people. It wasn't random people that they just picked and said, here, come help us do this. It was still appointed people. So you can just look at it. And my county for sure with redistricting, it's like, oh, really? Really? And so it was completely obvious. I would never do that here because nobody wants that. So we can't have the undermining things going on just because we say somebody else is doing it.
So their argument is, listen, California, we need to protect you, California voters, from President Trump's policies that are negatively impacting California specifically. What's your response to that?
Well, again, I told you, I wasn't the biggest fan of the big, beautiful bill, right? I mean, the one thing I hear most commonly is the whole healthcare thing. So, I mean, I understand that that's an issue. I mean, that's a problem with these big bills, right? They're too broad. I don't think there's enough time to actually make all the details perfect where it's going to be beneficial.
I forgot the first part of the question.
Their argument is that we're giving voters a choice.
Thank you for refreshing my memory. This is what happens when the same corporations that own the cable news companies also own the political parties, is that they say, we're giving you a choice, but you are going to be propagandized around the clock. So yeah, they're going to give you their messaging and they're going to pay good money for it, and they're going to have MSNBC run and cover and carrying water between now and the time that that referendum is voted for, and they're going to do their very best to buy people into voting against what is in their democratic best interest, the same way that Republican voters always are talked into voting against their economic best interest by fear-mongering around immigration or around crime. The reality is that these are massive propaganda machines. And Malcolm, again, my hero and role model, he said the media is the most powerful organization in the world. They can have you rooting for your own oppressors if you're not careful.
I just sat down with my 12-year-old daughter and explained redistricting.
Yes.
And she said, but Mom, two wrongs don't make a right. We're not Texans. We're Californians.
Yes, we are.
And California voted for an independent commission.
Yes, we did.
And now our governor and our legislature are redrawing the lines so that they get to pick who goes to D.C. And in her eyes, we're saying, listen, these people who live in what is now a red county, when they vote for a Republican, that Republican goes to Congress. And now these people in power in California are going to take that vote away from those people. What do you say to that 12-year-old who says, did two wrongs make a right?
What I would, by the way, your daughter's smart, good for her. What I would tell her is, take a look at what happens in Washington, D.C. You have a finite number of votes, 435 members. Right now you have a nearly equal number of Republicans and Democrats. Donald Trump is afraid he's going to lose his slim majority of Republicans come 2026 elections. So he's trying to rig the process to give himself more Republicans.
It's not two wrongs. This is different. What Texas is doing is acting out of the course of the census, not following new census data. They are not doing this after the census. They're not doing this through the normal course. They are doing this
because
it after
the census either, right? We're mid-census term.
They're doing it because Donald Trump instructed them to do it. And who's doing it in Texas? Who's making the decision? The legislature.
Texas didn't change its constitution to take the power to draw the maps out of the hands of the politicians, put it in the hands of the people, which we did here. The rules are that you draw the maps straight after the federal census every 10 years. By drawing these maps in the middle, they don't know who lives where. Millions of people have left California. In Los Angeles, whole communities have burnt down. Who knows who lives where?
The Democrats, they want to consolidate power. And under the guise of fighting back against the Republicans and fighting back against Trump, you are handing them more power. Well, what have they done to earn it? Are y'all feeling that this has been a state that has been well run and for your best interest? So you're going to essentially hand them the keys to make sure that they own every district in the state?
It's, let me tell you how broken something is by telling you I'm going to break it more.
My wife she doesn't like it. She doesn't support it. She thinks that districts should be drawn by independent redistricting commissions and that it is wrong for the state to be putting its finger on the scale. And for me, if we're going to have hope of any type of leverage during Donald Trump's presidency, it would be really helpful if Democrats controlled Congress. But again, this really illustrates a lot of the frustration that I have with not just my party, but politics in general, is that this is all in response to something that Donald Trump said. That is a great opportunity to rally the troops and introduce legislation in Congress and put them on the spot and make them say that we should continue to gerrymander across this country. I think that would have been more strategic, but here we are, we're left with this decision. And in my own family, day comes up, we vote, my wife's gonna vote no, and I'm gonna vote yes.